I teach calculus to sophomores who think derivatives are pure misery, and every morning for 11 months my wife handed me a bowl that was supposed to keep me healthy. The bowl always looked the same, pale oatmeal base with flax seeds, chia, spirulina powder, and something that smelled faintly medicinal. Jade would set it down in front of me at the small kitchen table, then lean against the counter with her own coffee, watching me eat. "You need this, Daren," she would say, tapping her phone screen without looking up. "Stress ages you faster than you think, and you're not 20 anymore." I was 44. She made it sound like I was falling apart. That particular Tuesday started the same way. I sat at the table, she placed the bowl down, and I lifted the spoon. The texture was gritty, the taste bitter under the honey she mixed in. I ate it because I trusted her, because she said it helped, because every time I mentioned feeling tired or foggy, she reminded me that I had been feeling better since I started the recipe. Except I had not been feeling better, I had been feeling worse. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? She never ate it herself. She would dip a spoon in, taste the edge, then say something about already having her smoothie or needing to save her appetite. I noticed that. I noticed a lot of things, but I kept them in the back of my mind, filed away like lecture notes I might need later. The kitchen was small, just enough room for 2 people if one of them stayed still. The counters were white laminate, chipped at the edges. The window over the sink looked out onto the parking lot of the condo complex, rows of identical cars under identical trees. Everything in that space felt controlled, measured, like Jade had arranged it specifically to look a certain way. That morning, I finished the bowl, rinsed it, and headed to campus. My classroom was on the 2nd floor of the math building, a narrow room with tall windows and a chalkboard that still worked better than the digital screen they installed last year. 18 students waited, half of them staring at their phones, the other half pretending to review notes. I started the lecture on related rates, drawing a ladder sliding down a wall, working through the setup with calm, clear steps. The chalk felt steady in my hand. The equations made sense. This was the part of my life that still felt solid. Standing in front of a board, explaining how change works, showing students that chaos has patterns if you know where to look. Halfway through the proof, the room tilted slightly. Just a degree or two, enough to make me pause and grip the edge of the desk. A student in the 3rd row looked up, a young woman with red hair and a concerned expression. "Professor Halloway, you okay?" I nodded, steadied myself, and kept going. The dizziness faded after a few seconds, but the moment stuck with me. It was not the first time. It was just the first time someone else noticed. The rest of the lecture went smoothly. I finished the proof, assigned homework, and dismissed the class. A few students lingered to ask questions about the exam next week. I answered them patiently, clearly, the way I always did. Teaching was the one place I still felt competent, the one place where no one questioned whether I was capable. At lunch, I sat in the faculty lounge with a sandwich I had packed myself. The lounge was a narrow room with mismatched furniture and a coffee maker that always smelled faintly burned. Noah Grant, my colleague in the department, dropped into the chair across from me. He taught topology and had a habit of talking fast while eating faster. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked halfway through a bite of his wrap. "Fine," I said. "Why?" "Jade mentioned you have been having some episodes. She said you might need to cut back on hours." I set my sandwich down slowly, carefully, keeping my face neutral. "She said that?" "Yeah, last week at the coffee shop. She seemed worried. Said you have been really tired, spacing out." He shrugged, like it was no big deal. "Just checking in." I kept my voice even. "I'm fine. Just busy?" Noah nodded and changed the subject to something about curriculum changes, but I stopped listening. Jade was talking to people. Not just talking, shaping a story, telling my colleagues that I was struggling, that I needed help, that maybe I was not quite myself anymore. I finished my sandwich in silence, threw away the wrapper, and walked back to my office. It was a small space on the 3rd floor, barely large enough for a desk, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf crammed with textbooks. The window overlooked the quad, where students sat on benches, laughing, living lives that had nothing to do with mine. I sat down and opened my gradebook, but I could not focus. Noah's words kept circling. "Jade mentioned you have been having some episodes." She seemed worried. She was building something, a narrative, a version of me that did not match reality but might become reality if enough people believed it. I went home that afternoon and found Jade in the living room, yoga mat rolled up beside her, scrolling on her phone. The living room was small, decorated with plants she had bought at farmers markets and throw pillows with inspirational quotes. Everything looked intentional, curated, like a set designed to project calm and wellness. She looked up and smiled when I walked in. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. "Ran into Noah. He said you mentioned I have been having episodes." Her smile did not waver. "I was just worried, babe. You have been so out of it lately. I didn't want people to think you were being careless or anything." "I'm not out of it." "Daren." She stood, came over, put a hand on my arm. Her touch was light, familiar, the kind of gesture that used to feel comforting. Now it just felt like control. "You are. You just don't notice it. That's why I take care of you." I looked at her hand on my sleeve, then at her face. She believed what she was saying. Or she wanted me to believe she believed it. I went to my office, a small room off the hallway with a desk, a whiteboard, and shelves full of textbooks and old student papers. I closed the door, sat down, and opened a plain notebook I kept in the bottom drawer. I wrote the date. I wrote Noah, Faculty Lounge. Jade told him I'm having episodes. Then I flipped back through the pages. There were other notes. Dates when I felt dizzy, mornings when I could not remember the drive to campus, afternoons when I had to reread the same paragraph 4 times, all of them after breakfast. The notebook was filling up. Each entry was short, factual, emotionless. I did not write about how I felt. I just wrote what happened, date, time, symptom, context. The next morning, I woke up early. Jade was still asleep, her breathing slow and steady beside me. I got up quietly, went to the kitchen, made coffee, and waited. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the building settling. She came out 20 minutes later, moving through her routine, leggings, tank top, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She mixed the recipe without looking at me, humming softly. The sound filled the kitchen, light and tuneless. She set my bowl down. She set hers down. I waited until she turned to grab her phone from the counter. Then I switched the bowls, quietly, just a single smooth motion while her back was turned. My heart was steady. My hands did not shake. She sat down, glanced at her screen, and reached for her spoon. She dipped it into the bowl, lifted it halfway to her mouth, and stopped. Her hand froze. Her eyes locked on the mixture. I watched her face change. Not shock, not confusion, but something colder. Calculation. Recognition. She set the spoon down carefully, like it might break. "This one is too cold," she said, voice tight, controlled. "I must have let it sit too long." She stood, walked to the sink, and dumped the entire bowl down the drain. The sound of it hitting the metal was loud in the quiet kitchen. Then she turned back to the counter, scooped a fresh portion from the pot, added the powders again with quick, precise movements, and stirred it quickly. "Here," she said, sliding the new bowl in front of me. "This one is better." I looked at her. She looked at me. Neither of us said anything. The silence stretched. Outside, a car started. Someone walked past the window. The world kept moving. I ate the new bowl. She drank her coffee. We sat in silence until I left for work. That night, in my office, I opened a small plastic container I had bought from the campus bookstore. I scooped a portion of the next morning's batch into it before Jade served it. I sealed the lid, labeled it with the date using a small piece of masking tape and a pen, and placed it on the shelf behind a stack of old exams where she would never look. Then I sat at my desk and wrote one word in my notebook: swap. Underneath, I added the time, her reaction, the exact words she used. I wrote it all down, clean and clear, the way I would document a mathematical proof. Step by step, verifiable, true. I closed the notebook and sat in the dark, listening to the sound of Jade moving around the apartment, her footsteps soft on the carpet, her voice drifting through the walls as she talked on the phone to someone I could not identify. And I understood that everything had changed, not because of what she had done, but because now I knew. Jade moved into my condo 3 years ago with 2 suitcases and a yoga mat. She said she loved how quiet I was, how stable, how I had my life together in a way most men did not. She worked part-time managing a wellness cafe downtown and ran a small social media account about clean eating and stress relief. She was good at talking to people, good at making everything sound important and urgent. I was good at listening. At first, she cooked normal meals, stir-fries with chicken and vegetables, roasted salmon with lemon, simple pastas with garlic and olive oil. She would talk while she cooked, telling me about her day, about difficult customers at the cafe, about the latest wellness trend she was researching. I would sit at the counter and listen, grateful to have someone filling the silence. Then she started reading about inflammation and cortisol and how certain foods could slow aging or sharpen focus. She began experimenting. The meals got stranger, smoothies with supplements I could not pronounce, salads with powders that turned everything green or purple. She said I worked too hard, that teaching drained me, that I needed support. "You're too much in your head," she told me one night, chopping vegetables with sharp, quick strokes. The knife hit the cutting board in a rhythm that felt almost aggressive. "You need someone to pull you back into your body." I did not argue. I liked that she cared. I liked that someone wanted to take care of me. My previous relationships had been brief, distant, built on convenience rather than connection. Jade seemed different. She seemed invested. The special recipe started about a year after she moved in. She called it a morning reset, something to balance my system, clear brain fog, help me handle the stress of grading and lecturing. She made it sound scientific, like she had researched it thoroughly. She probably had. Jade always did her homework when she wanted something. The first time she served it, she explained each ingredient: oats for sustained energy, flax seeds for omega-3s, chia for fiber, spirulina for detoxification, and a blend of adaptogens, ashwagandha, rhodiola, other compounds she listed quickly, confidently, the way people do when they do not expect to be questioned. "This will change everything," she said, setting the bowl in front of me. "You'll see." I ate it every morning, and every morning she watched. The dinner parties were worse. Jade liked hosting small gatherings, her cafe friends, a couple of my colleagues, her mother Marina on weekends. She would cook elaborate meals, arrange everything beautifully on mismatched plates she had collected from thrift stores, then spend the evening talking about wellness and routines and how hard it was to keep a partner healthy when they did not take care of themselves. One Saturday night, we had Noah and his wife Emily over, along with two of Jade's friends from the cafe, women in their 30s who dressed in athleisure and talked constantly about cleanses and energy work. We sat in the living room with wine and cheese, and Jade started talking about my episodes. "He spaces out," she said, laughing lightly like it was charming. "I will be talking to him, and he just goes somewhere else. I have to repeat myself 3 times. Everyone smiled. Emily nodded sympathetically, her expression soft with concern. "It's the age thing," Jade continued, her voice taking on a tone of patient explanation. "Men hit their 40s and everything starts breaking down. I keep telling him he needs to take it easy, but he pushes himself." I sat there, glass in hand, saying nothing. She made it sound like I was fragile, like I needed managing, like I was a problem she was heroically solving. "Good thing he has you," one of her friends said, raising her glass. Jade reached over and squeezed my hand, her fingers warm and firm. "I do my best." The conversation moved on to other topics. Someone's new job, a yoga retreat in Costa Rica, a documentary about gut health. I stopped listening. I just watched Jade, the way she leaned forward when she talked, the way she touched people's arms for emphasis, the way she constructed a version of reality that everyone accepted without question. After they left, I cleaned up while Jade scrolled through her phone on the couch. She posted a photo from the evening, the table, the wine glasses, the candles, with a caption about supporting your partner through life's changes. It got 60 likes in 10 minutes, then 100, then more. I washed the dishes in silence, stacking them carefully in the drying rack, wiping down the counters until they gleamed. At work, the story spread. I started noticing the way colleagues looked at me. A little longer, a little more carefully, like they were checking for signs of decline. In the faculty lounge, someone asked if I was sleeping okay. Another asked if I had considered taking a semester off. They were kind about it, but the questions felt like probes, like tests I had not agreed to take. One afternoon, I overheard 2 adjuncts talking near the copy machine in the hallway. I was coming around the corner, and they did not see me. "I heard he has memory issues," one said, a young woman who taught statistics. "His wife mentioned it to someone. She's worried he might not be able to keep up much longer." I stopped walking, stood very still. They kept talking, their voices low and serious, discussing me like I was already gone. I did not confront them. I just filed it away, another data point in a growing pattern. Jade's cafe was called Root and Ritual, a small storefront with reclaimed wood tables, hanging plants, and a menu written in careful handwriting on a chalkboard. She worked there 3 days a week, mostly handling social media and running wellness workshops. I stopped by one Thursday after my last class, wanting to grab coffee before heading home. She was behind the counter, talking to a customer about adrenal fatigue. The customer was a woman in her 50s, tired-looking, holding a green smoothie like it might save her life. I sat at a corner table and listened. "My husband had the same problem," Jade was saying, her voice warm and confiding. "Couldn't focus, couldn't remember simple things. I had to completely overhaul his diet. It's a full-time job, honestly." The customer nodded, eyes wide with sympathy and interest. "But that is what partnership is. Jade continued, leaning against the counter in that casual, approachable way she had perfected. You step up when they can't. You become their support system. The customer bought a meal plan package. Jade rang it up, smiling, and promised to send recipes by email. I left without ordering, walking out into the afternoon heat, feeling something cold settle in my chest. That night, she came home late, smelling like eucalyptus and lavender from the cafe's diffusers. She kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I told her it was fine. She told me about a new client who wanted her to design a personalized meal plan for hormone balance. I'm thinking about expanding, she said, sitting beside me on the couch. Maybe offering consultations online. I could reach more people, build a real business. Sounds good, I said. She looked at me, head tilted, studying my face the way she did sometimes. You seem tired. Did you take your vitamins today? I did. Good. I worry about you. She went to the bedroom. I stayed in the living room, laptop open, pretending to grade. Instead, I pulled up our bank accounts. Joint checking, savings, my retirement fund. Everything was in both our names except the condo, which I had bought 5 years before we met. I noticed a small charge I did not recognize, a payment to a legal consultation service. $50, dated 2 weeks ago. I clicked on the transaction, read the merchant name, then closed the laptop and sat in the dark. The next morning, Jade set the bowl in front of me and mentioned, almost casually, that she had been talking to someone about power of attorney. Just in case, she said, stirring her coffee slowly. You know, if something happens and you can't make decisions, it would make things easier. Easier for who? She laughed, light and dismissive. For both of us, Daren. Don't be paranoid. I ate the breakfast. I went to work. I came home. And that night, in my office, I started a new list. Every time she mentioned insurance. Every time she brought up my condition in front of someone else. Every time she suggested I sign something, or update something, or let her handle something. The list grew faster than I expected. Within a week, I had 12 entries. Within 2 weeks, 20. I also started photographing the bowls before I ate them, just quick shots on my phone, date-stamped, taken from the same angle each time. The images looked identical. The same pale mixture, the same scattered seeds, the same faint smell that made my stomach turn even before I tasted it. I did not know what I was building yet, but I knew I needed to remember. I knew that if I did not start paying attention, I would disappear into whatever story she was writing. One evening, my phone lit up with a calendar notification I had not created. The title read, Check with Insurance about Daren's coverage. Morning call. I stared at it. Then I opened the shared calendar app. Jade had added the event. She had also added another one, scheduled for 2 weeks later. Discuss health proxy options. I deleted neither. I just took a screenshot, saved it to a folder on my phone, and went to the kitchen. Jade was blending something green and thick, the blender loud in the small space. She looked up when I walked in, turned off the machine, and smiled. Hey, what do you want for dinner? Whatever you want, I said. She poured the smoothie into a glass, took a sip, and leaned against the counter. You know I'm easy. I nodded, and I started planning, not in broad strokes, not with emotion or anger, just small, careful steps. Evidence, documentation, proof. Because I understood now. This was not about trust or love or marriage. This was about survival. And I was going to survive. The decision did not feel like a decision. It felt like waking up. One moment I was going through motions, eating what she served, nodding when she talked, accepting the version of myself she kept describing. And the next, I was awake, fully, coldly awake. It started the morning after I saw the calendar reminder. I came into the kitchen, and she was already at the counter, stirring the pot with slow, methodical movements. She hummed while she worked, her back to me, phone propped against the coffee maker with a recipe video playing on mute. She scooped the mixture into 2 bowls. Set mine down with a soft clink against the table. Picked up hers. Drink it while it's warm, she said, eyes on her phone screen, scrolling through comments on one of her posts. I lifted the spoon, took 1 bite, the texture gritty and familiar. Then I stood, said I needed to use the bathroom, and walked down the hall with the bowl in my hand. In the bathroom, I locked the door, opened the small cabinet under the sink, and pulled out an empty travel shampoo bottle I had cleaned the night before. I scooped most of the mixture into the bottle using the spoon, careful not to spill. Then I sealed it, wiped the edges with toilet paper, and flushed the evidence down the toilet. I ran the water for 30 seconds, let it echo through the apartment, then returned to the kitchen with the mostly empty bowl. Finished already? Jade asked, glancing up from her phone. Yeah, I have an early meeting. She smiled, warm and approving. Good. You need the energy. I rinsed the bowl in the sink, the water running clear, and grabbed my bag from the chair. I kissed her cheek, a habit, automatic, meaningless, and left. At campus, I taught 2 classes back to back. The first was differential equations, the second was calculus for business majors. Both went smoothly. My head was clear, my focus was sharp. I wrote equations on the board with steady hands and answered questions without hesitation. During the break between classes, I walked across campus to the administration building. The air was cool, the sky overcast. Students moved in clusters, talking and laughing, their voices blending into white noise. I did not have an appointment, but Dean Harper Cole's assistant waved me in anyway. She was a woman in her 60s who had worked at the college longer than I had been alive. She knew everyone, remembered everything, and asked no unnecessary questions. Dean Harper sat behind a wide desk covered in stacks of paper, folders, and a laptop that looked like it had not been updated in years. He was 55, balding, with the careful expression of someone who had learned to navigate academic politics without making enemies. He looked up when I entered. "Daren, what can I do for you?" I stayed standing. "I wanted to let you know that there might be some confusion about my health in the coming weeks." He frowned, setting down the pen he had been holding. "Confusion? My wife has been telling people I have memory problems, blackouts. She mentioned it to colleagues. She might mention it to you." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, studying me with the same careful attention he gave budget reports. "Are you having memory problems?" "No." "Then why would she say that?" I kept my voice even, factual. "That is what I'm trying to figure out, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. If anyone suggests I need reduced duties or medical leave, I would appreciate being part of that conversation." He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "Noted. Is there anything else?" "Not yet." I left before he could ask more questions, walking back across campus with my hands in my pockets, my mind already moving to the next step. That afternoon, I called a clinic across town. Not the one Jade had taken me to twice before when she insisted I was coming down with something, but a different one, quieter, with doctors who did not know her and had no reason to believe her version of events. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Larkin, an internist who had good reviews and a reputation for being thorough. The receptionist asked what the visit was for. I said general health concerns and fatigue. She booked me for 3 days later. The appointment was on a Wednesday afternoon. I told Jade I had a faculty meeting that would run late. She barely looked up from her laptop when I left. The clinic was in a converted house near the edge of town, painted pale yellow with a small parking lot and a sign that needed repainting. Inside, the waiting room smelled like carpet cleaner and old magazines. I filled out forms, answered basic questions, and waited. Dr. Larkin came in after 20 minutes. Mid-50s, gray hair pulled back in a loose bun, calm eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She shook my hand, sat down on a rolling stool, and pulled up my chart on a tablet. "What brings you in today, Mr. Halloway?" I described the symptoms. Dizziness that came in waves, usually in the morning. Fatigue that felt deeper than normal tiredness. Trouble focusing on tasks that used to be automatic. Memory lapses, small things like forgetting whether I had locked the car or sent an email. She listened without interrupting, her expression neutral and professional. When I finished, she asked, "How long has this been happening?" "About a year, maybe longer. It's hard to say when it started." "Have you changed anything in your routine? Diet, exercise, medications?" "My wife started making me a special breakfast about a year ago. She says it's for my health." Dr. Larkin's pen paused over her notes. "What's in it?" "Oats, seeds, supplements. She calls it a morning reset. She says it helps with stress and aging." "Does she eat it too?" "No, she says she gets her nutrients from smoothies." Dr. Larkin set the pen down and looked at me directly. "Do you think your wife is harming you?" The question was blunt, clinical, without judgment. I appreciated that. "I think something in that mixture is making me sick." "Have you asked her what is in it?" "She says it is natural ingredients. Adaptogens, nothing prescription." "But you don't believe her." I met her eyes. I stopped believing her when I switched our bowls, and she refused to eat it. Dr. Larkin nodded slowly, her expression shifting slightly. Not surprise, but recognition. She had heard stories like this before. "I'm going to order lab tests," she said, pulling up a form on her tablet. "Full panel, toxicology screen. It will take about a week for results. In the meantime, I would suggest not eating anything you have not prepared yourself." "I won't." She handed me the lab paperwork and added, her voice quieter now, "If you are right about this, Mr. Halloway, you need to be very careful. People who do this kind of thing do not stop just because you notice." I thanked her and left. On the way home, I stopped at a private lab I had found online. It was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation office, the kind of place that did paternity tests and various screenings without asking too many questions. I brought the shampoo bottle with the saved mixture inside. The technician at the desk was young, maybe 25, with tattoos running up both arms and an expression that suggested he had seen stranger things. He raised an eyebrow when I handed him the bottle, but did not ask questions. I filled out a form requesting allergen testing, paid cash, and was told results would be ready in 10 days. When I got home, Jade was on the couch with her laptop, editing a video for her social media. The screen showed her talking to the camera, smiling, gesturing with her hands. She paused the video when I walked in. "Hey, how was your day?" "Long. Lots of grading." "You should rest. You look pale." I nodded. "I think I will." I went to my office, closed the door, and sat at my desk. The room was small and quiet, the only sound the faint hum of traffic outside. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, labeled it Project Files, Fall Semester, and started filling it with scans. The calendar screenshot, photos of the bowls, notes from my symptom log, everything organized by date, everything clear and verifiable. Then I opened my email and found a message from the clinic confirming my appointment and the lab orders. I saved it to the folder. I was building something, a case, a proof, step by step, variable by variable, the way I would solve a complex equation, isolate the unknowns, test the hypothesis, verify the results. That night at dinner, Jade made pasta with vegetables and a cashew cream sauce. We ate at the small table in the kitchen, and she talked about her day, about a difficult customer at the cafe, about a new collaboration with a supplement company. Then, between bites, she mentioned that a friend of hers had recommended she look into legal protections. "Just in case," she said, twirling pasta on her fork. "You know, if your health gets worse, power of attorney, medical decisions, that kind of thing." "You already mentioned that." "I know. I just want us to be prepared. It's responsible." I nodded and kept eating the pasta I had watched her make from start to finish. Later, in bed, she curled up beside me, her hand resting on my chest, her breathing slow and even. "I love you," she said, her voice soft in the darkness. "You know that, right?" "I know." She fell asleep quickly. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing, the rhythm steady and calm. 3 days later, I got an email. The subject line read, "Preliminary results, confidential." I did not open it. Not yet. I wanted to wait until I had everything lined up. The clinic results, the private lab, the legal options. I wanted to be sure. But I saved the email, moved it to a special folder, marked it as important, and I kept collecting. Because I knew what was coming. I knew that Jade was not going to stop. She was going to keep pushing, keep talking, keep shaping the story until I was too weak or too confused to fight back. But I was not confused anymore. And I was not going to be weak. I was going to be methodical, patient, precise. And when the time came, I was going to show everyone exactly what she had done. The toxicology report arrived on a Tuesday morning. I opened it in my office at home, door locked, laptop screen glowing in the dim light. The document was 8 pages long, dense with medical terminology and lab codes. But the summary was clear enough for anyone to understand. Presence of benzodiazepines. Presence of diphenhydramine. Presence of trace amounts of zolpidem. None of them prescribed. All of them sedatives. All of them present in levels consistent with repeated exposure over an extended period. Weeks at minimum, more likely months. I read the report twice, slowly, absorbing every detail. Then I printed 2 copies on the small printer I kept on the shelf, stored the digital file in 3 separate locations, my laptop, a USB drive, and a secure cloud account, and placed the original in a locked drawer beneath a stack of old tax returns. My hands were steady, my breathing was calm. I felt no shock, no anger, just the cold satisfaction of confirmation. I had suspected. Now I knew. Dr. Larkin called an hour later. Her voice was professional but edged with something sharper, concern, maybe, or controlled alarm. "Mr. Halloway, I reviewed your lab results." "I saw the report." "Then you know what we're looking at." She paused, and I heard papers rustling in the background. "These substances do not appear in your system by accident. Someone is giving them to you, deliberately and repeatedly." "I know." "I'm required to document this. I'm also required to suggest you report it to the authorities." "I will, but not yet." She paused longer this time. "I understand you want to be careful, but if you are in immediate danger..." "I'm not. I stopped eating the food she prepares. I've been documenting everything. I just need a little more time to make sure the case is complete." Another pause. I could hear her breathing, weighing her options, balancing her legal obligations against my request. "I'm going to send you printed copies of these results for your records," she said finally. "Keep them somewhere safe, somewhere she can't find them." "I will, thank you." "And Mr. Halloway?" Her voice softened slightly. "Be very careful. If she realizes you know, the situation could escalate." "I understand." She hung up. I sat in silence, staring at the report on the screen, the words sharp and undeniable. 2 days later, I met with the private lab technician in a small office that smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. The space was cramped, just a desk, 2 chairs, and a laptop covered in stickers from coding conferences and tech startups. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes and the restless energy of someone who worked too many hours. He pulled up the file without preamble, turned the screen toward me, and leaned back in his chair. "So," he said, "your sample. What did you find?" He gestured at the screen. "Same compounds as in your lab samples, benzodiazepines, diphenhydramine, zolpidem, but the concentrations are higher, significantly higher." "Meaning?" "Meaning whoever mixed this knew exactly what they were doing. The dosages were calculated, not random. They wanted specific effects, sedation, memory impairment, cognitive fog. Without making you so sick you would go to a hospital right away." I leaned forward slightly. "How long would it take for these effects to build up?" "With daily exposure, a few weeks, maybe a month. The compounds accumulate in your system. Each dose adds to the last. Eventually, you start experiencing chronic symptoms: fatigue, confusion, memory problems. And because it builds gradually, it's hard to pinpoint when it started or what is causing it." "And if someone stopped taking it?" "The symptoms would fade, slowly. It might take a few weeks for your system to clear completely, but you would start feeling better within days." I nodded, absorbing the information. "Can you put that in a report?" "Already did." He handed me a folder, the pages neatly printed and stapled. "Official analysis, signed and dated. You can use it however you need." I opened the folder and scanned the first page. The language was technical but clear, the conclusions unambiguous. I closed it and slid it into my bag. "Thank you." He shrugged. "Just doing my job, but for what it's worth, whoever did this to you is dangerous. Be careful." I paid him in cash, $300, no receipt, and left. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. Not a big firm with glass towers and expensive suits. A family attorney named Allison Park, who had been recommended by a former student. Her office was in a converted house near downtown, the kind of place with creaky floors and plants in the windows. She met me in a small conference room with a window overlooking a parking lot. She was 41, precise, with short dark hair and a handshake that felt like a contract being signed. She wore simple professional clothes, dark slacks, a white blouse, minimal jewelry. I laid out everything: the bowls, the swap, the symptoms, the lab reports, both of them, the clinic and the private analysis, the calendar entries about insurance and power of attorney, Jade's comments to colleagues, the narrative she was building about my declining health. Allison listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad in neat, compact handwriting. When I finished, she set down her pen, folded her hands on the table, and looked at me with the calm assessment of someone who had seen this before. "This is attempted incapacitation with intent to gain control of assets and decision-making authority," she said. "Depending on what she planned to do once you were fully impaired, it could be more serious. Much more serious. What are my options? You protect yourself first, legally, financially, physically. You revoke any shared access she has to accounts or decisions. You update your power of attorney, your will, your beneficiaries. You make sure she cannot touch anything if something happens to you. And then? Then you decide whether you want to confront her privately or publicly. Either way, you need witnesses and documentation. Strong documentation. The kind that holds up under scrutiny." "I have documentation," she nodded. "Let me see it." I pulled out the folders, the symptom log, the photos, the calendar screenshots, the bank records, the toxicology reports. She went through each piece methodically, asking questions, checking dates, cross-referencing entries. When she finished, she looked up. "This is good, very good, but we need to make sure it's airtight. We need to anticipate every argument she might make and shut it down before she can make it." We spent the next 2 hours going through every piece of evidence, building a timeline, identifying gaps, and filling them. She took notes, drafted outlines, and asked questions I had not thought to consider. When we finished, she handed me a folder. "These are template documents. Power of attorney. You'll need to name someone other than Jade. Updated will, revocation of any medical proxies." I will draft final versions once you decide how you want to proceed. How long will that take? A week. Maybe less if you move quickly. I stood to leave, then paused. What if she tries something before then? Allison met my eyes, her expression serious. Then you call the authorities immediately and you show them everything you just showed me. Do not hesitate. Do not try to handle it yourself. I nodded and left her office. The bank was my next stop. I drove across town to the main branch, a squat brick building with a parking lot that was always too small. Inside, the air smelled like paper and air conditioning. I asked to speak with a manager. The branch manager was a woman in her 50s named Patricia, polite but cautious, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. I showed her my identification, explained what I needed, and presented the toxicology report along with a signed affidavit from Dr. Larkin confirming my mental competence. She read both documents carefully, her expression growing more serious with each line. I need to know what changes have been requested on my accounts in the last 6 months, I said. She pulled up the records on her computer, scrolling through entries with practiced efficiency. There was one request 3 weeks ago. Your wife attempted to add herself as sole beneficiary on your retirement account and update the joint checking to give her primary authority. My jaw tightened. Did it go through? No. We require both signatures for changes like that. She said you were too ill to come in, but our policy is clear. We could not process it without your explicit consent. Good. I want that request formally denied and noted in my file. I also want to open a new personal account that she does not have access to. Transfer my salary deposits there starting next pay period. Patricia hesitated, glancing at the documents again. Are you separating from your wife? Not yet, but I am protecting myself. She nodded slowly. I understand. Let me get the paperwork started. It took 40 minutes to complete everything. New account, transfer authorizations, updated contact information. When I left the bank, I had confirmation letters in hand and the knowledge that Jade could no longer touch my income or my retirement. When I got home, Jade was at the wellness cafe. The apartment was empty and quiet. I went to my office, updated my digital records, and locked the physical documents into a fireproof safe I had bought the day before. A small, heavy box that fit in the back of my closet behind a stack of old winter coats. Then I sat down at my desk and allowed myself to feel it. The anger, the betrayal, the cold clarity of knowing someone I had trusted wanted me erased from my own life. I did not cry, I did not break anything. I just sat there, breathing slowly until the feeling settled into something I could use, something sharp and focused. That evening, Jade came home with takeout from a vegan place she liked, Buddha bowls with quinoa and roasted vegetables. We ate on the couch, watching a cooking show neither of us cared about, the television filling the silence. You seem better lately, she said, glancing at me over her fork. More focused. I've been sleeping more. Good. That is what you need. Rest and routine. I nodded and kept eating. The next day, she sent me a text while I was teaching. Planning a brunch next month. Family and friends. Want to update everyone on how you are doing. We'll invite your dean too. Thought it would be nice. I stared at the message on my phone screen during the break between classes. She was setting the stage, a public event, witnesses, a carefully curated audience, a chance to frame me as sick, to position herself as the devoted wife managing a failing husband, to solidify the narrative she had been building for months. I texted back, "Sounds good." Then I forwarded the message to Allison with a single line, "This is the moment. Let's be ready." She replied within minutes. "Understood. I will prepare everything. We will need to coordinate timing carefully." I put my phone away, returned to the classroom, and taught the second half of my lecture with perfect clarity. The pieces were moving. Jade thought she was in control. She thought she was building towards something inevitable. She was, just not the way she expected. Allison's office smelled like coffee and old paper. I sat across from her with a stack of documents between us. "These are final," she said, tapping the folder. "Power of attorney, Noah Grant. Updated will, Jade removed. Beneficiaries changed to your brother. Medical proxy, Noah, with Dr. Larkin as backup." I flipped through the pages. Everything was clean, precise, dated. "What about the separation filing?" She slid another folder across. "Drafted, but not filed. We hold it until after the brunch for maximum impact." "Good. I want her to think everything is normal until it's not." Allison nodded. "I'll attend the brunch. When you signal, I confirm all protections are active." "The medical documentation?" Dr. Larkin agreed to provide a statement. "The toxicology results are admissible. If Jade claims you're unstable, we have proof you're not." I signed everything. Each signature felt final. The dean needs to know, I said. Do it, Allison agreed. The more people who know the truth, the less room she has. I drove to campus. Dean Harper was in his office, reading something on his screen. He looked up when I knocked. Daren, come in. I closed the door and laid it out. The breakfast, the symptoms, the toxicology reports, Jade's attempts to access my accounts, the narrative she'd been building. He listened in silence. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. You're telling me your wife has been slipping substances into what you consume? Yes, and I have proof. He rubbed his face. Why tell me now? She invited you to a brunch. She'll use it to discuss my health issues. I wanted you to know the truth first. He nodded. I'll be there. And Daren? Be careful. People like that get desperate when they lose control. I left campus and stopped at the bank. Patricia confirmed everything. Salary rerouted, accounts locked, beneficiary changes documented. At home, Jade was in the kitchen preparing dinner. She looked up, smiling. I confirmed the brunch reservation. Private room at the Grand Hotel. I invited your dean, my mom, Noah and his wife, and Trent. Sounds good? She came over, hands on my arms. This will help everyone understand. Show them how much better you're doing with the right support. I looked at her. The perfect smile, the wellness persona, the calculated cruelty underneath. I know, I said. That night, I organized everything one final time. Symptom logs, photos, calendar screenshots, bank records, toxicology reports, legal documents, everything in a single binder with labeled tabs. The brunch was 2 weeks away. I spent those days teaching, grading, acting normal. I ate only food I prepared. I smiled when Jade talked about the event. She had no idea. One afternoon, I stopped by the cafe. Jade was behind the counter. Trent leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone. I watched them, the way she laughed at his jokes, the way his hand brushed her shoulder. I left without saying anything. The night before the brunch, I packed the binder and USB drive, set 3 alarms, laid out my clothes. Jade was excited, talking through the menu, the seating, the toast. She wanted to present the special recipe as a symbolic gesture. We'll all try it together, she said. Show people how it works. Sure, I said. She kissed my cheek. This is going to be good for us. I nodded. I think so too. I barely slept that night. Ran through the plan step by step. Morning came. I showered, dressed, checked my bag. Everything ready. Jade was in the kitchen preparing the recipe in a covered dish. For the toast, she said, smiling. We drove separately. I arrived early, walked into the private room. Round table, name cards. 3 bowls on a side table labeled Special Recipe, Sample. I sat and waited. They arrived one by one. Marina in a blazer, Noah and his wife, uncomfortable. Trent in a tight shirt, grinning. Dean Harper, polite and reserved. Finally Jade, carrying the dish, glowing. She hugged everyone and sat beside me. Thank you all for coming, she said. This means so much. I looked around the table, all eyes on her. I placed my hand on the binder and waited. Jade stood, smoothing her blouse, and smiled. The practiced, perfect smile. I know we're all busy, so I appreciate everyone making time. The last year has been challenging, for both of us. Her hand rested on my shoulder. Daren has been going through health issues, memory problems, confusion, fatigue. It's been scary. Marina nodded. Trent leaned back. Noah shifted uncomfortably. Dean Harper watched. But I've been doing everything to support him, adjusting his diet, keeping him on track. And it's working. He's better, more stable. But if things get worse, I might need help, legal help, medical decisions. She paused. So I wanted to update everyone and feel supported. Because taking care of someone you love when they're struggling, it's a lot. Marina squeezed her hand. You're doing such a good job. Jade's eyes glistened. Thank you. She picked up a covered bowl. I brought something symbolic. The special recipe I've been giving Daren every morning. It's really helped. I thought we could all try it together. She set bowls in front of me, Trent and Marina. Just a taste, she said, lifting her spoon. I looked at the bowl, then at her. Before we do that, I said calmly, I'd like to say something. Jade blinked. Of course. I looked around the table. A few months ago, I switched our bowls while she wasn't looking. The room went still. I wanted to see what would happen. She froze, stared at the bowl like it was dangerous, then dumped it in the sink and made a new one for me. Jade's smile faltered. Daren, what? I started keeping samples, tracking symptoms, dizziness, confusion, memory problems, everything you've been telling people I have. I pulled out the binder and placed a toxicology report on the table. This is from an independent lab. The mixture contains benzodiazepines, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. None prescribed to me. Jade went pale. That's not... This, I said, flipping tabs, is from my doctor. My tests show repeated exposure over weeks, months. Noah leaned forward. Dean Harper's jaw tightened. Marina's hand pulled away. I have records of reminders you created about insurance, beneficiaries, power of attorney, while telling people I was too sick to make decisions. Jade stood. This is insane. I have bank records showing you tried to change beneficiaries on my retirement account. The bank denied it because I never consented. Trent shifted. Marina stared. I have statements from colleagues documenting the narrative you built. That I'm unstable, need supervision, might not be competent. I closed the binder and set it on the table. You've been poisoning me. Slowly. Carefully. Enough to make me weak but not hospitalized. You wanted me dependent. You wanted control. Jade's hands shook. I was trying to help. Help? You were trying to erase me. The door opened. Allison stepped inside in a gray suit. Good morning. I'm Allison Park, Mr. Halloway's attorney. Jade's eyes widened. His what? I've been working with Daren. We've updated his power of attorney, will, and beneficiaries. You've been removed from all legal and financial authority. These changes are active. She placed a folder down. We've also prepared a separation filing for submission this afternoon. Jade's voice cracked. You can't. He already has. The evidence is documented. If you contest, it becomes public record. Marina spoke quietly. Jade, is this true? Jade turned to her mother, tears starting. Mom, he's lying. Mrs. Ward, Allison interrupted. Your daughter attempted to access assets while impairing his cognitive function through sedatives. That's premeditated harm. Dean Harper stood. Daren, I owe you an apology. You didn't know, I said. He looked at Jade with disgust. We're done here. He walked out. Noah and his wife followed. Trent stood, heading for the door. Jade grabbed his arm. Wait, Trent. He pulled free. I'm not getting dragged into this. Gone. Marina stared at the binder. How could you? Jade's face crumpled. I didn't. He wasn't taking care of himself. So, you slipped substances to him? Tried to take his money? Jade didn't answer. I picked up the binder and stood. We're done. Allison and I walked out, down to the parking garage. A clinic representative waited by my car with an evidence kit. I handed her the sealed bowl. This is the last one. She labeled it. My phone buzzed. Jade's name. I silenced it. I got in my car and drove away. The hotel parking garage was quiet, except for the echo of our footsteps. Allison walked beside me, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. The clinic representative had already left with the evidence bag containing the bowl of special recipe. The final piece of physical proof. That went exactly as planned, Allison said, glancing at me. Clean, documented, witnessed. I nodded but said nothing. My phone was vibrating constantly in my pocket. Jade, over and over. I didn't look at it. What happens now? I asked. I filed the separation papers this afternoon. The evidence goes to the authorities. Dr. Larkin is submitting her report. The lab results are on record, and the bank has documented her attempts to access your accounts. You're protected legally, financially, and medically. And Jade? Allison's expression hardened. That depends on whether the authorities decide to pursue charges. What she did is criminal, administering substances without consent, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable person. But that's not your decision to make. Your job was to protect yourself. You did that. We reached my car. I unlocked it, but didn't get in immediately. Will she come after me? I asked. Probably. People like her don't accept losing, but you have restraining order paperwork ready if needed. And she knows that any contact can be used against her. She's smart enough to understand that. I looked back toward the elevator we'd just left. Somewhere up there, Jade was sitting in that private room with her mother, alone, watching everything she'd built collapse. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a cold, clear sense of completion. Thank you, I said to Allison. You did the hard part. You documented everything, stayed calm, didn't let emotion override strategy. Most people can't do that. I got in my car. She stepped back. Call me if anything changes. Otherwise, I'll be in touch about the next steps. I drove out of the garage into afternoon sunlight. The sky was clear, the air cool. Traffic moved normally around me. The world hadn't changed. Only my place in it. My phone finally stopped buzzing. I drove to campus, parked in my usual spot, and walked to my office. The building was quiet. Most faculty had left for the day. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. The office looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Desk, bookshelf, whiteboard with half-erased equations, the fireproof safe hidden in the closet where I'd stored copies of everything. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. Checked my email. Nothing urgent. A few student questions about the upcoming exam. A department memo about spring scheduling. Normal, ordinary, mine. I pulled up the document where I'd been tracking everything. The symptom log, the timeline, the evidence collection. I read through it one more time, then saved a final backup and closed the file. It was done. My phone buzzed once. A text from Noah. "Are you okay? That was intense. Let me know if you need anything." I texted back, "I'm fine. Thank you for being there." Another buzz. Dean Harper. "I should have trusted you from the start. I'm sorry. Your job is secure. Take whatever time you need." I replied, "I appreciate that. I'll be in class Monday as usual." I sat in the quiet office as the afternoon light shifted through the window. Outside, students walked across the quad, their voices distant and unconcerned. Inside, I felt the weight of the last few months finally lifting, not gone, but lighter. I thought about going home, to the condo that was legally mine, that Jade would have to leave. But I wasn't ready yet. Instead, I pulled out a stack of ungraded exams and started working through them. Derivatives, related rates, applications of calculus to real-world problems. The math was clean, logical, solvable. I worked until the sun set and the building grew dark around me. The next morning, I woke up in my office. I'd fallen asleep at my desk sometime after midnight, head on my arms, the stack of graded exams beside me. My neck was stiff, my back ached, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Jade, 6 voicemails, dozens of texts. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I didn't read the texts. I just blocked the number and put the phone away. There was an email from Allison, sent at 7 in the morning. "Separation papers filed, served to Jade at 9 a.m. today. She has 30 days to vacate the property. Restraining order ready if needed. Stay strong." I forwarded the email to Noah and Dean Harper, then closed my laptop. I showered in the faculty gym, changed into the spare clothes I kept in my office, and walked to my first class of the day. Calculus 2. 23 students, half of them still half asleep, the other half frantically reviewing notes. I taught the way I always taught, clearly, methodically, answering questions with patience. The equations flowed across the board in neat lines. The students copied them down, asked for clarification, worked through practice problems. No one knew what had happened yesterday. No one looked at me differently. I was just Professor Halloway explaining how to find the volume of a solid of revolution. It felt good. After class, I walked to the faculty lounge. Noah was there, pouring coffee. He looked up when I entered. "Hey, you doing okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." He handed me a cup. I still can't believe she did that. And for how long? 11 months, give or take. He shook his head. "If you need anything, place to stay, someone to talk to, whatever, just ask." I appreciate it, but I'm okay. We drank coffee in silence for a moment. Then Noah said, "Emily wanted me to tell you. If you need help clearing Jade's stuff out of the condo, we'll help. Make it faster, less awkward." "Thanks, I might take you up on that." Another faculty member walked in, nodded at us, and started making tea. The moment of privacy ended. Noah clapped me on the shoulder and left for his next class. I spent the rest of the day teaching, grading, attending a department meeting about curriculum changes. Normal academic work. The kind of routine I'd built my life around before Jade had entered it. That evening, I finally drove home. The condo looked the same from the outside. Same parking lot, same door, same number on the mailbox. But when I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I could tell immediately that Jade had been there. Half her clothes were gone from the closet. Her yoga mat was missing. The plants she'd bought were still there, but her personal items, laptop, phone charger, favorite coffee mug, were gone. The kitchen was untouched. The special recipe pot still sat on the stove, unwashed. I picked it up, carried it to the trash, and threw the entire thing away. Pot and all. Then I went through the apartment methodically, removing everything that was hers. Clothes, books, decorations, wellness products. I piled it all in the living room, a growing mountain of someone else's life. It took 3 hours. When I finished, I called a donation center and arranged for pickup the next day. Then I ordered food from a restaurant I liked, ate it at the kitchen table in silence, and went to bed early. I slept deeply for the first time in almost a year. The next 2 weeks moved quickly. Jade's belongings were picked up and donated. She didn't fight the separation. Allison said she'd signed everything without contest, probably on advice from her own lawyer who understood how bad the evidence looked. The condo felt bigger without her things, emptier, but mine. I repainted the living room, rearranged the furniture, bought new dishes to replace the ones she'd chosen. Small changes, but they mattered. At work, life continued normally. I taught my classes, held office hours, attended faculty meetings. Dean Harper pulled me aside once to ask how I was doing. I told him I was fine, and I meant it. Noah invited me to dinner with him and Emily. We went to a quiet Italian place downtown, ate pasta, talked about department politics and student drama and everything except what had happened. It was exactly what I needed. Dr. Larkin called to check in. "How are you feeling physically?" "Better. Clear-headed. More energy." "Good. Your system should be completely clear by now. If you notice any recurring symptoms, call me immediately." "I will. Thank you for everything." "You're welcome. And Mr. Halloway, you did the right thing. Not everyone has the courage to do what you did." I went back to the wellness cafe once, not because I wanted to see Jade, but because I wanted to reclaim the space. I sat at the same corner table where I'd watched her with Trent, ordered coffee, and worked on my laptop for an hour. She wasn't there. According to the barista, she'd stopped coming in. Trent, too. I finished my coffee and left. Marina called me one evening. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Daren," she said, her voice subdued. "I wanted to apologize. I should have questioned things. I should have talked to you directly instead of just believing her." "It's okay." She was convincing. "That's not an excuse. I'm her mother. I should have known." She paused. For what it's worth, I told her what she did was unforgivable. "We're not speaking right now." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. She needs to face consequences. Real ones." Another pause. "Are you doing all right?" "I am. Better than I've been in a long time." "Good. That's good. Take care of yourself, Daren." She hung up. I stood in my kitchen, and looked around. Clean counters, empty stove, no special recipe, no careful measurements, no watching eyes. Just space and possibility. I made myself dinner. Something simple, something I chose, and ate it slowly, tasting every bite. 3 weeks after the brunch, I received a formal notice that the separation was finalized. Jade had moved out of state. Allison heard she'd gone to stay with a friend in Arizona, trying to rebuild her wellness brand in a place where no one knew what had happened. The authorities had reviewed the evidence but declined to press charges. "Insufficient evidence of intent to cause serious harm," the letter said. The sedatives were available over the counter in the doses she'd used. Without proof she meant to escalate or cause permanent damage, they couldn't build a criminal case. I didn't care. She was gone. I was free. That was enough. I stood in my office at the college, looking out the window at students crossing the quad. It was late afternoon, golden light slanting across the grass. In an hour, I'd teach my last class of the day. Tomorrow, I'd grade exams. Next week, the semester would end. Life moving forward. My phone buzzed. A text from Noah. "Drinks after your last class? Emily wants to celebrate the end of semester." I texted back, "Sure, I'll be there." I turned back to my desk, picked up the dry erase marker, and started writing equations on the whiteboard. Preparing for class. Doing the work I'd always done, but now without the fog, without the fear, without someone slowly erasing me from my own life. The binder of evidence sat in my safe at home. I'd keep it there just in case. But I didn't think I'd need it again. Jade was gone. The special recipe was gone. The narrative she'd built was gone. What remained was mine. My job, my home, my clarity, my future. I capped the marker, checked my watch, and gathered my materials. Class started in 10 minutes. I walked down the hallway with steady steps, pushed open the classroom door, and greeted my students. "Good afternoon. Let's talk about optimization problems." I wrote the first equation on the board, and I smiled.